Welcome to the Success Pick and Mix podcast. I'm your host, Nicky Raby, a professional pick and mixer. I'm a personal brand coach, a speaker, an actor, a creator, and a podcaster. I'm on a mission to help you find and create your version of success, your pick and mix of life and business on your terms, a blend that complements your personality, your goals, and your circumstances. Since 2018, I've been sharing interviews and mini episodes to help you unlock your next step, to make it real and make it happen. Round here, we dream big. We go for the ideal version. We talk about money and make moves our future selves would be proud of. This podcast is free and available for you whenever you need it. So do rate, review, and subscribe for new episodes. If you want to go deeper with my support, check out my freebies house and unlock the rooms you choose. nickyraby.com/freebies house. I also have workshops, programs, and one-on-one bespoke offerings. For prices and availability, go to nickyraby.com. Thank you, as always, for spending some time with me and my guests. Now, on to today's episode. So the interviews are back. I am so thrilled. These interviews have been safely tucked away on my laptop for a little while now, and I'm really pleased to launch this brand new series. The first guest is an amazing star. Her name is June Angelides, and if you look at her Instagram, you will get a small insight into all the things that she does. So she's an investor at Samos Investments. She's an entrepreneur and activist. She's a columnist for the Financial Times, and she's sometimes on TV. She's got 3 kids, but most of all, she's a really lovely person. She's so supportive. She's just got such a great energy. And I really feel like she's an open book, and she's somebody in my network who is now a friend, who I really feel is authentic, if we may use that word, and themselves. So I know that you will get so much from this episode. Today, I wanted to ask June about investing and growth and scale and how you do that. And I still feel like it's quite a hidden world that very few are privy to. So I really wanted to break down the conversation, ask all the daft questions so you don't have to. Here's the episode. Enjoy, and let us know what you think. You can tag us on social media at Nicky Raby and at June Angelides. I will leave all the details down below. Enjoy the episode. June, welcome. Welcome to the podcast. I'm so excited to have you.
I am so excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me on.
Oh, we've got so much to talk about. But yes, please introduce yourself. Let us know who you are and what you do. And where you're up to in this crazy time that we're having.
Oh, so I am June Angelides. I'm an early stage investor at Samos, but I'm probably best known for starting a social enterprise called Mums in Tech, which was a child-friendly coding school for moms. And yes, it is what it kind of says on the tin. We would go into tech companies and convert their meeting rooms into a classroom and a crash. And I would turn up with about 15 moms and 15 babies. And over 8 weeks, we would learn about all things tech. How do you go from an idea to a product, whether it be a website or an app, and really take them through the basics. What is product? What is UX? What is HTML, CSS, JavaScript? How do you hire a developer? How do you have that conversation and translate that idea into something tangible? And most importantly, giving them that community to have other women around them that were on that journey, that wanted to learn more about tech, maybe hadn't felt comfortable in your traditional spaces, and perhaps hadn't been able to afford to go to a traditional coding boot camp, which can be quite expensive and quite time intensive. So my primary aim was to create a safe space where people felt comfortable, could bring their babies, which didn't exist. It was the first one in the UK. And have an amazing network of mentors in the tech company delivering the content available to them outside of the lessons to really help push that vision forward and, you know, when you've got people around you ready to support you, I think that's sort of that first hurdle. And I you know, look back and think about what you're doing and how you help people make their dreams a reality. It's that having one person who supports you and says you can do it. Sometimes that's really
Yes.
what it takes to make you believe.
It does, because actually, having that idea that's swimming around your head for a long time, but actually saying it out loud, and then certainly saying it out loud to somebody who you're going to pay, the amount of times where people go, "Oh, that feels so good to say that out loud. I've never told that to anybody ever
Yeah.
before." I'm like, "What? But what? Not to your husband, not to your wife, not to like really?"
uh,
But were you in the coding space before, or was this all like brand new? Were you learning as you went as well?
it was totally brand new for me. You
That's
know
what
what?
I thought.
People assume that I was teaching. I was not teaching. And you know, this really started when I was on my second maternity leave, and I'd worked at a venture debt and a venture debt team at Silicon Valley Bank. I'd been there for a year, and I'd been working with so many amazing, talented entrepreneurs, and you know, just learning so much about technology. And I realized I don't really know the basics of coding and how they're building these companies. And I thought, you know what, this is a great time. I've got a year of what is it? Let me see what it's like to build something, and very quickly realized when trying to hire a developer that I just didn't speak their language. I didn't
Mm.
understand what APIs were, and you know, SEO, and I hadn't had to really dig into the deep tech before in my role. It was more about the finance, and I thought, wouldn't it be nice to have that conversation with them? So I started looking at courses I could take. You know, initially started with courses for moms, and very quickly found that there weren't any. There was just courses, you know, mommy baby classes, you know,
Mm.
weaning. And I thought, you know, did no one think that we want to learn something as well? And it really surprised me. But then I was quite frustrated that, you know, it didn't exist. So I said to myself, if it doesn't exist, I'm going to build it. You know, as you
And
do.
isn't it annoying sometimes when you have that realization where you're like, yeah, the idea is not going to leave me.
It's
Oh no,
not.
it
I
turns out I'm the one who's going to have to do
Oh,
it.
trust me, I did try and convince others to do it.
Yeah,
I
you would
remember.
be great at this.
Absolutely. I remember calling General Assembly and saying, so what do you think about doing, you know, something for moms? And they're like, well, why don't you just try coming to one of our classes? And I thought, okay, I'll do it. And I did. I went there, you know, it's a 6 o'clock on a, you know, like a Tuesday evening. And I went with my sister. I had to beg her to come with me because I knew they were on the top floor, massive flight of stairs,
Yes.
had my big eye candy buggy with me. And I'm thinking, there is no way my poor baby's going to end up on the floor. I can't do this
Yeah,
on my
and
own.
you've got like stuff that's you will see
Yeah.
for a fortnight, and yeah, it's all of those things. And I
It,
think you've just got such a point about when you become a mum and you're very much in that world. I not so much when I have my daughter, but when I have my son, everything just felt massive. It felt like it was a secret world. So these things of, you know, going and choosing your buggy, it was like,
yeah.
oh, well, don't mess this up
Oh
because
yeah.
otherwise you're going to scar your child for life. Or, you know, you'd go to these weaning workshops. I remember going to this thing at the doctor's, and we're all like sitting in a circle and passing an apple to each other and going, yes, we must really cut this up or grate it so
Yeah.
we don't like allow the child to choke. And it's these things that would have been seemingly so simple before, but somehow. And so I love that you had that. No, no, no. Just because you're a mum now, it doesn't mean that your brain is suddenly going to leave the building and never to
Yes.
return. Like this is the perfect time to move things forward. And I guess, what did the mums who came and experienced that, what did they learn, and how did it change things in unexpected or expected ways?
Yeah, I think, you know what, a good example is Sarah Titano, and I hope she won't mind me putting her on blast here. She knows she's like she's the one person I genuinely admire her story because she came on the pilot program and she had just been made redundant from BBC. You know, she had a great career there. She just had a baby. I think it happened while she was pregnant. And she was trying to figure out what to do next. And she come across this program that I was putting together, and she came along. And one of the things that we did was go on field trips. Like we went to the BBC, and one of the places we went to was Makers Academy, which is a coding boot camp. And it's a good chance for people to get a sense of what it was like to work at different companies. And she found it so interesting, and she was like, okay, after this I am going to do Makers Academy. And she made it work. She found a way to do it, alongside breastfeeding her son. Her husband took parental leave, which was amazing. I think he was one of the first men in his company to do that. And she became a developer. She can code, and then she went on and build the company that she had dreamed about building for the longest time. I remember when we first met at the beginning of the program, she had this idea for creating a place for families to find activities for under fives, and she has made it come to life thanks to that journey. And she's built Happity today, and believe it or not, it has thrived through lockdown. She's managed to make it fully remote experience. She's currently onboarding so many providers that have been stuck, and she has done that with a fully remote team, fully flexible, and I believe a fully mom team. And I love that. And it's just shown that that community, that power of having the right space to learn is key. And that's something that I feel very proud of being a part of, a small role in just sort of opening up that world to many moms. We taught 250 moms over 3 years, and it may not seem like a really large number for me, just having to balance that alongside 2 kids, and
it's no mean feat. And this is the thing, it's like I always think about the ripple effect of what that actually means. So that number, and then showing their partner, who then mentions it to somebody at work, who then you're showing your child that this can happen. And I heard an interview with Sophie Ellis Bextor and her mum yesterday on her podcast, and it was so fascinating, them talking about being creative in their in the ways that they parent as well, and how they both make it work as freelancers and still do what they love. And I just thought, gosh, that's so important to show the way. And actually, I don't know if you found the same, but when I've been showing my kids, and my daughter, she's 1 this week, so she's not all up in my business just yet. I mean, she wants to be close and all the rest of it, but she's not aware of the numbers. But my 4-year-old is really figuring out what work looks like and is asking questions. And the fact that I'm never like, Mummy's leaving you to do this terrible thing that I absolutely hate, and I'm so sorry, and I've got all of this stuff. I'm going to do this today, and this is going to be great, and let's talk about it, and I'll see you in a couple of hours. And the fact that I can do a lot of my work via my laptop and so, sort of pop in and out, and we can juggle it between us, that's been really fascinating, because hopefully by the time it comes to him getting a job, he'll be like, oh, I've seen it. Like, this is possible, or I can be around, or I can do all kinds of things. I can have an idea and make it happen. So yeah, it's been really fascinating.
It's interesting because my aunt and I actually had a discussion yesterday around what do the kids think I do, and what do they make of my life, and she was like, June, they probably think that every single mom is like you. And I'm like, okay, that is really interesting, because my portfolio career. I work at Samos 3 days a week, but alongside that I do a lot of other things. And I've always been conscious of showing the kids what I do. With Moms in Tech, I took Ivy everywhere. She was like my little handbag. I called her my little co-founder. She was at every single meeting with me. And I did that intentionally because I wanted to make sure we partnered with the right kinds of companies. If I was going to turn up at that first meeting with my kids and you didn't welcome us, then I knew that you wouldn't welcome 15 other moms coming in.
Right.
So that was always really critical. And then whenever Adam would have half term, he would come as well, and really experience the classes. He would get involved in some of the sessions, and it's been really key in sort of shaping their experiences. And I think them seeing me sometimes on television is nice, and just seeing that variety. I want them to know that you can do anything. You don't have to do just one thing. There is no prescriptive formula for how you must work, and I hope that that's what I'm showing them by sort of constantly talking about what I do, or if I'm in an article, I show them and they ask me questions about it. So we do have those very open discussions at home, and they say, show them, seeing is believing. I do hope they can see that sort of anything is possible and not have any self-limiting beliefs, because if that's sort of one thing I can achieve in the kids, is to help them to dream big.
Yeah, and saying it not just from a like, this is what I'm doing and this is what's
Yeah.
happening, but showing them how you operate in
Yes.
business. And my mum retrained as a teacher when I was 9 years old, and I watched her, study. And I was 9, my brother was 6, and it was very much that time of like the early 90s, where it was like, oh, cool, you want to have a career as a woman? Sure. But if you could just let us know still what time we're eating, and the relatives are coming. So if you could just prepare like 3 sets of 3-course meals as well. And it was all of those things. It wasn't necessarily an equal world at that, as a woman, you were still expected to be a bit of a Stepford wife and deliver the goods, as it were. But I remember how my mum, once she got her teaching job and eventually she became head, how she ran her school based on kindness, or the things, the standards that she put in place. Like, it was quite a socially deprived school, and didn't have a lot of resources, and there were many parents who were children themselves, and had a lot of situations that were very challenging. And even my mum going, okay, a lot of these kids don't have breakfast before they come. Okay, I need to make sure that I'm in the supermarket and I'm buying this food, and because that's how we're going to get kids to lead. So she didn't necessarily wait until she got the funding from the local authority, because she was like, this kind of needs to happen now, and it's a bit unorthodox, but I need to like make some moves. And I think our children watching us in that way of like, oh, something's gone wrong, right, mummy's going to fix it, or she's going to get on the phone, or who do I call, or what happens. And not that I would put my son on the local bus, but he would know how to get to our tube station, because I'm like, what can you see, have we passed Tesco yet, what's going on, is the traffic, because that's the world that we're bringing them into. And I know that you're kids have sort of been on film sets and all sorts of things, and I bet that's been so great for them in terms of, because I can't imagine that you would be the stage mum of like, here's the talent, everybody stand back. You will be like, right, you listen when they talk to you, or or have you been polite, have you said thank you to that person, have you done what you needed to do, because if I find out you haven't.
It's so interesting. I actually said to Ivy, well, what do you learn when you're on set? And she goes, Mommy, I learned very good listening skills. And I said, yes, you do. And it's so true. They do have to take a step back and listen and digest a lot of information. But I love that they are learning to network. I look back at the Copperfield set, and I am in awe that Ivy had that opportunity at the age of 3 to be among such incredible masters of their craft. I mean, Tilda Swinton and Dev Patel, Pete, it's just so many incredible people, but she composed herself so well. And I'm so proud of her. And I love that she can look back on that experience and the many experiences she's had sort of in the modeling and acting world, and realize that she did that, she did that as a little girl. She had those beautiful experiences.
It's so great, and the fact that when you're in the world of people who are at the top of their game or doing it, you don't just learn the craft. As I say, you learn how people take phone calls. And
Yeah.
I had somebody. She's episode 19. If anybody wants to go back and listen, but Indra Ove was an actor I worked with. I think it was a second job out of drama school, and she had two young boys at the time, and I didn't really know how I was going to make money as an actor, let alone throw children into the
Yeah.
mix. Not that I would be throwing them, because, I wasn't at a stage of, thinking about serious relationships or anything. But I remember watching her switch over, like her husband came to the set and we did this, and they did a sort of switch over, and she had supplies and she had sorted. And there must have been something in my brain that clocked that and thought, thank you, got it, it's possible.
Yes.
Yes, I've seen that. And I've now been able to do that to other women. Like I haven't taken Luna anywhere yet, but with Oscar, my son, Matt and I were both up for the same thing, and we were in the same room. And this woman was like, "Oh my goodness, how do you do that? I thought that it wasn't possible, and now that you're a parent." And I said, "No, hear it from me," because she was sort of 10 years behind, and it was such a lovely full circle moment that I could deliver that back to her. So, yeah, I would love to talk about investing now, and like how people start, how people learn more, because I know there were those random things about money of like a bank loan or a credit card, or like waiting until a rich man would come along and sweep you off your feet, or like, growing up in the 90s, you'd marry a footballer and then you'd have pretty shoes and you never have to work again. But I know a lot of people who are listening to this are in maybe their early stages of business, or they're looking to go to the next level. How did you start to become familiar with the financial world? And maybe taking example of sort of Mums in Tech, and how did you get the wheels in motion with that?
Yeah, I think that's definitely one of the most asked questions, sort of, where do you start? How do you know what is the right
Yeah.
type of funding for your business? And I think my very first foray into the world of tech and investment was when I joined Silicon Valley Bank. And that was completely accidental. After doing economics at UCL, I was actually quite insistent that I would never get into finance because I'd heard really horror stories about people working at investment banks and working ridiculous hours. And I'd always been very conscious from an early age that work-life balance was pretty key to me, and I wasn't key to do. I didn't want to do sort of 7 o'clock till 3 in the morning. That just wasn't
Yeah.
appealing. But a recruiter came up to me and said they were looking for happy people, and there was this new bank opening up in London. I'm like, okay, this is different. I want to know more, and that's how I joined SVB. I was one of the first 20 employees in the UK, but that was when I started really learning about finance. I joined the venture debt team there, and my first exposure was into sort of commercial due diligence, looking at sort of Series A companies, the companies that were raising venture capital. Probably for the first time, we would come along and give them a bit of venture debt to layer on, which really just helps to extend the runway without having to dilute your cap table even further. And for those who are not familiar with the cap table, it's just essentially who are the owners of the company. And every time you give shares away, you're giving away ownership. So I think it's really important, first of all, to think around who you want to be key people in your business. Who do you want to spend quality time with? I know it's easy to just fall into the trap of thinking it's just money, but when they say think about smart money, it's really important. You're gonna be accountable to this person who's giving you money to help you start your business, grow your business, and they're going to want to have regular updates. They're going to be advising you, but maybe they might not be. There is also dumb money. There is money that completely adds no value and could potentially also be a problem. I've come across some founders who took money really early on in the journey from people who they probably didn't spend enough time getting to know and do their due diligence on. and very quickly found out that they probably were too nitpicky. Being the
Yeah.
word, you kind of
Oh, I'm just
want
lost
to
you.
have
Can you?
investors that trust you, your business. We're not meant to come in and run your business for you. So it's very important that you take your time to choose the right partners, because it is sort of a 10-year plus journey. And I would say it really depends on your type of business and scale. What is your dream for your business? And not every business is going to want to be sort of taking over the world, and that's fine.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that there is a bit of pressure that people assume that if you start a business, you must be going for sort of world domination.
Yes.
It doesn't have to be the case. It is very fine, and it's very lovely to have your local, family shop, mom and dad shop, and maybe you have a specific niche of customers you want to serve, and that is absolutely okay. And I think that's where people assume that every type of business should get venture capital. I don't believe so. I think there are certain businesses that maybe are suited to friends and family, and that can be all.
Yes.
That might be all you need to get started, and perhaps you could very quickly be cash generative, and maybe you don't need any more money after that. You don't need to have the multiple rounds of funding. I think that's a very big misconception. I think companies that tend to need venture capital are the really, really capital intensive companies that perhaps really need this money to get to scale, to
Yeah.
build the platforms behind the businesses. Perhaps you need to get some really expensive engineering talent, but ultimately you're going to be tackling a very, very large market, and that's why we really do spend a lot of time thinking about the market sizing, and then really trying to understand the team. For
Yes.
me, that team is super critical, and VCs will tell you we can invest at different stages. We have very often invested pre-product, and that is totally fine, but it's super critical that that founder is the right person to be building that business, and they've got the relevant experience. So in the one case where we invested pre-product, the founder had they'd been 3 times the founder. They had proven that they could set up a business and scale it, raise investment for it, and exit it. So we had that strong belief that they could do it again.
Yeah.
So that gave us confidence. So I think it's sort of a recipe. You need to think about what elements of the recipe. Perhaps that founder hasn't started a business, but perhaps they have a co-founder who has,
Yes.
or someone on their advisory board who will play a critical role. So they'll have a bit more hands-on experience from an external party to help get them up to speed. So you can get around it, and people ask about whether or not they need to have a co-founder. I don't believe so. There are many successful solo founders. You look at Sharmadean Reed,
Yeah.
founder of Beauty
I
Step.
love her.
She's
She's
incredible.
amazing.
She's a force. And
Oh, whenever I'm just like need a bit of a, ooh, okay, let's
yeah.
do this. Like I go on her Instagram, her IGTV or things like that, because just the way that she communicate, I'd love to have her on here actually. I think she'd be amazing. But just the way that she communicates knowledge and how she implements things, that she breaks it down in such a tangible way. I guess if people are looking to think about, maybe they're starting to Google the random thing like, how do I get money for my business? Would an early stage be like writing down what your goals are in terms of where you sort of see this going? So sort of connecting with the vision so you can then get the right things in place to move forward.
Yeah, I think at the early stage, you really want to think about, how much you need to spend on your team. I think it's very easy in those early days to think, oh, I won't pay myself. I'll just sort of focus on the business. You need to
Yes.
pay yourself. You need to pay yourself, because otherwise you're going to be distracted. You're going to be stressed about money. So really make a realistic budget. Include yourself, I would say, because I've heard that story very often. I'm only going to raise 250. I won't pay myself the first year. That's not really realistic, and actually that's not what we want to hear. We want to make sure you're looking after you. You're thinking about self-care, not burning out, And then, factoring the team you need, what is that market strategy, how much you need to spend on acquiring customers, just really mapping out the real cost of getting it off the ground. And I think a lot of times people don't realize that there's actually so much power in community. I think that's obviously for certain, depending on what you're building. But if you come to an investor and say, I've got this strong community, we look at that. We actually think about, what have you done to start to get to know your early customers? And I think that goes a long way in helping us figure out if you really know your market inside out. And yeah, I think it's a journey, but really take that time to map out the true cost. Maybe start with friends and family. I know that's a sort of an easy thing to say, and not everyone has necessarily access to friends and family who have who are able to give you a couple $100,000 here and there. I don't.
Dad, I really need $1 million. Can you just transfer it? That would be great.
But there are so many great networks out there, especially for female founders. There's YSYS, which I highly recommend. Speak to other founders about what's worked for them. There's a great database of angel networks that was recently published by Pietro at Stride. And I'm happy to share a link to the followers later. It's a great Medium post. It's Pietro Inverness. So if you check him out, he's an investor at Stride, and he recently put a document together, which I think is like gold dust, because very often a lot of the angels are very hidden. It's hard to know where to start. I mean, there's Angel Academ, but apart from that, there are not many places where you can go and find this database of angel investors that you can go to. So that's one thing I found, even in venture, and it's sort of a closed network. Even getting in, you sort of need to know someone who tells you about the roles, and it was quite a journey finding Samos. I think thanks to Diversity VC, I was made aware of the role, but I think had I not been, sort of gotten into that world, maybe I would never have found out about it, because roles are not always advertised on their websites.
Yes. And I'm a big believer in that, in terms of, if I can shortcut the process for somebody else, then I will happily do that introduction. And I think sometimes knowing somebody in your network who's done what you want to do, for the most part, people are really willing to share and say, yes, of course, let me introduce you, or let me just take you for a coffee or things. And for the most part, I think especially women as well, if we're, I remember there was actually two guests that were trying to, on my podcast earlier, one had raised investment and the other one was in the process of, and I was like, hang about, these two people don't know each other. Yeah. I should introduce them and show, how possible things are. Is there anything in terms of you as your personality and you as the kind of the personal brand, I guess, in the investment, which is really appealing, that people are going to, I guess, bet on as well, even if it's just there's something about them, there's an instinct, I just really like this person. Is there anything that you could do in preparing, or is it worth it being really likable in that situation?
Oh, absolutely. I think of the companies in our portfolio, and I like all the founders. It's so key. And, many people may not want to admit it, but the reality is it's important that you have chemistry with your investors, because, as I said earlier, you're going to be spending a lot of time with them. So really finding ways to connect. I would encourage founders to do a bit of research on the investors before you go in, because as much as they're doing DD on you, you need to do DD on them, because you're going to be spending time with me. So if you're coming in to chat with me, I have tons of information about myself online. I've done a ton of blog posts and podcasts, and I've been in articles. So you can find information, you can read up about me and have a sense of the things that I care about, the things that I've invested in. And I think that just really helps to break the ice initially, have that rapport, because end of the day, it's a very human business. I would say VC is 100% a people business. And I think that's why it really appealed to me, because I'm massively a people person. So when I'm thinking about who I'd like to invest in and who I want to spend the next 10 years working with, I want to make sure they're good people. Like, I won't be
Yes.
investing in terrible people anytime soon. It's so key. It's like, you know me, Nikki. It's like
Yes.
I want to, we don't have to go, to a comedy store, but I want to be able to have a nice, happy conversation with you, and
Absolutely.
authentic, and feel
Yeah.
that I can bring my whole self to that conversation as well. And I'd love if they felt that way too.
And you know that about even going back to being on a film set, like if you're a nice person, you're going to gallop way up the list before you even get to a point of anything else. If people know you, if there's a referral, and I'm now at the stage where a lot of my coaching clients come from other clients, like, oh, you should speak to Nikki, or and it goes that way, because if you continue just to show up in that way, people want to work with nice people. And I guess with you being an investor, it's like sometimes the time that you spend with them isn't just in the boardroom doing things. It could be on a flight, or it could be waiting in a train station for something, or like having to prep somebody under pressure, or there's all kinds of unknown situations. So yeah, having that rapport is really important.
So important, because when things go wrong, and they often do, you want them to feel like they can call you and have an honest conversation with you before it gets really bad.
Yes.
And I think that's sort of when it really counts, whether or not you've had that chance to build that good bond.
Absolutely, absolutely. How do you COVID-19 aside, but like, because that's a whole different conversation, but how do you manage your week so you can wear the different hats? I'm not going to say like, how do you balance being a mum and, because even balancing and working a personal brand in terms of growing that and delivering the work, but then documenting it, and then growing and doing something that's going to pay off in 2 years, that's no mean feat. Throw in 3 children into the mix and a husband, it's yeah, to call it a juggle is not even kind of justifying the point enough. But what do you do to keep yourself really topped up, to keep yourself feeling sharp, in a great place, so when that opportunity comes, you're there to serve and be able to fulfill it?
I think the first thing I'd say is be willing to delegate.
Yes.
I've got a nanny that comes 3 days a week. So the days where I'm working at Samos, which is usually Tuesday to Thursday, she's here. So on those days, I'm able to sort of be heads down doing my work, and she is incredible. She takes care of everything to do with the kids. I can sort of just really double down on work. And I have an incredible husband, I have to admit. He is brilliant at, if I've got an event, or I need to work a little bit later, he takes all over the dinner, and he does all that stuff without ever complaining. We are very much an egalitarian household, and I think obviously that comes from having a mom that raised me. I know that end of the day, women are strong, and I think she's raised me to be a strong woman in that sense. And I do believe that everyone should play their part. And same with the kids, they chip in and do their bits around the house. So we sort of have a pattern. We take it in turns to do bedtime, and I would say my evenings are when I sort of manage to recharge. Kids go to bed at 8, and I'm a Netflix junkie. So oh my goodness, I love my Netflix. So I have a couple shows that I will watch. At the moment, I'm watching Umbrella Academy with Steven, and I'm also watching Good Girls. I binged on Working Moms, which I thought was excellent. So I like to have that time where I can just sit by myself and watch some shows, or catch up with friends. I think it's so important. I think COVID especially has really shown us sort of the importance of just unwinding I don't take it
Yes.
for granted anymore. There are days I'll just, run my bath, listen to a good podcast. I love a good podcast.
Me too.
There's so many that obviously Michelle Obama's one is out now, so I'm
I
very
know.
excited
I
about
watched
that.
her documentary
Brilliant.
on Netflix. Have you seen it? It was
I
so,
have.
yeah. Of course you've seen it.
She's
Absolutely.
amazing. She's amazing, and yeah, I think in this difficult time, I'm constantly seeking inspiration. So yeah, we just sort of have to have that toolkit for when it gets too much and knowing when it's time to just stop. So there are days
Yeah.
where I will just switch off all my phones and tell the kids to hide them. That is my new strategy. It works. They don't give it back until they're supposed to.
Good.
And it's brilliant because I fully step away. Otherwise, I am checking social way too much, and then you check your emails. And I'm very conscious on my days off to fully just immerse myself in them and just
Yes.
unwind. We have family time every Saturday where we watch movies together, eat popcorn, and we love it. We look forward to it.
I'm
It's
really strict with
important.
that as well because because otherwise I just think what am I doing all this for? Well, like
Exactly.
it has to be, and I think I've had this weird relationship with social media recently of, how much do I show my children
Yeah.
and like why am I here and why am I here? The big old questions, right? But
Yeah,
like
so true.
what am I here to do? What's most useful? What's a good use of my time? And for me, I've always continued to keep showing my children, a limited view of them because I just think I can't just talk about becoming a working mum
Yeah.
and then not actually seeing my children because that's just disingenuous and not helpful in that way. And I think it can be so easy unless you have those strong boundaries in place to always answer the thing or just do a quick call or just catch up on something.
Yeah.
And yeah, I've really had to double down on going, is this important? Actually, this person could wait for this and I don't have to do it immediately. And but nobody teaches you this stuff. You have to learn the hard, ugly way sometimes, don't you?
Exactly. But yeah, personal time is super critical to me because as much as I love to sort of give my time and I'm conscious that when I was running Mums in Tech, that probably was my downfall in a way. And I think that's part of why I ended up having a bit of burnout towards the end. I was just saying yes to way too
Yeah.
much. And I think it's so important that, we as women learn very early on that it's okay to say no. You can't be making every single person happy. You have to think
Yeah.
about yourself, and it's okay to put yourself first. And I think we often feel this guilt that we shouldn't be selfish. It is okay because if you don't look after you, how can you look after anyone else?
Absolutely. And we're teaching, those little people around us,
Yeah,
or these bigger people, how to take care. It's a skill that I'm passing on to them. So, my
absolutely.
son watches me make this quite extensive porridge situation every single morning, and I take my time and I'm putting the berries on and I'm
Oh,
slicing it's a real sort of ritualistic thing. I really enjoy starting my day in that. But I'm showing him that, and also he gets one as well, so he's happy. But it's I'm showing him like it's really important to put some good stuff in your body in the
yeah,
morning. And
true.
he's already started asking me questions like, is this going to give me energy? And
I
I
love
try not
that.
to talk about like healthy or sugar or
Yeah.
go too much in that just yet. But I do talk about it's going to give you energy, it's going to make your brain sharp, it's going to set you up for the day and keep you warm in the winter and all those kind of
So
old wives'
good.
tales. So yeah, it's interesting. But what is next for you? What have you got cooking at the moment?
You know me.
Yeah,
Always starting something. And I think really random idea. I just, thinking about how I can help more, and thought I'd do an event for female founders with my good
Mm,
friends Yvonne and Charmaine. And we did one in June, and I think no, the first one was in May. It was supposed to be a one-off, but we had so much interest from female founders, especially Black female founders, and very quickly it's turned into a thing. And we've had two more events since, one with one of the partners at Index Ventures, Danny Reimer, and last month we just did one with Black VC with the incredible Monique Woodard and Mercedes Bent, and it seems like it's now an official community, which I
Yes.
absolutely love, because obviously female founders are the reason why I got into VC. It was through that journey of running Mums in Tech and coming across so many female founders who weren't getting investment. That was my main motivation for joining. I
Mm.
wanted to help change the stats, to have someone that looked like them sitting at the table, being able to make investment decisions. That was my motivation. And I'm
Amazing.
thinking about doing a show. So, watch this space. It's early days, but I've always said, Oprah is my idol. I absolutely love
Yes.
everything about Oprah. So,
I can't believe we've only just mentioned her. We've been talking, June, for
oh,
45 minutes. This is
I'm
so
all things
random.
Oprah. I love Super Soul Sunday. I don't know if
Yes.
you've
Oh, I'm
watched.
all,
Oh,
yes,
it's
all of
brilliant.
it.
It's whenever I need some inspiration, Super Soul is brilliant.
Yeah.
Obviously, Zoe Motherkind is another one that I really like.
Oh, she's great as well. Yeah, she's been on this podcast and I've been on her. She's brilliant, and you'd be brilliant on hers as well. I will hook you up. But yeah, it's one of those moments actually with Oprah that I love her 360 version of the world. That it's not just about the business or
Yeah,
spirituality or feeling good or connection or relationships. It's about that whole package. And I
yeah,
think certainly after COVID, it is about that wholehearted way of doing life and business, and we
absolutely.
can't just compartmentalize things anymore. I heard Mary Porter's talking about all of these big companies, and she's like, why are there these huge grand reception areas when they could easily be made into creches, or
Yeah,
people being able to have their baby on
exactly.
site so they're at the table still? And I just thought,
Oh,
oh my goodness, like how many big bulbous vase are there full of lilies and all kinds of weird statues? And actually, they could build something so people could take their babies rather than commuting. And oh, yeah, there's so much work to be
easily.
done.
So
But
much. But I do love that COVID has normalized a lot of that. Definitely, we're winning on the work from home space.
oh, we are.
A lot of people who worked in roles where their employers used to say you can't work from home have
Yeah,
proven that we can indeed work from
turns
home.
out.
Yeah, I mean, I think that has sort of fast forwarded that discussion a couple of years, which I'm really excited about. And it's forced many teams to get an insight into other people's realities. I have been Zoom
Yes.
bombed by my kids in multiple meetings, but I think that that's been great in even further, showing that authenticity. I had a meeting where Ivy, the 5-year-old, decided, she was like, "Oh, mom, I want this on the iPad," and then she jumps on the chair and she's like tugging my hair and she's whipping it from side to side.
Wow.
But the people loved it. They loved it.
Of
I was like,
course.
they just had a chance to see. Look, this is what June's going through. She's
Yeah, and
normal.
look at what she's doing, and she's doing all these things, and also she's acing it in other areas. And
Oh,
I definitely think, like, I've never missed the tube. I've never thought, gosh, I'd really love to be on that sweaty Victoria line now. Like, that would make me so
exactly.
happy. I have not. I mean, I'm a huge, advocate of the London Underground. I think they're great, but I haven't missed it. But
No, no,
anyway, I know
absolutely.
you're a busy woman, so tell us, like, where can we find you, and how can people find out more, and some next steps, I guess, of what people can do moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. So people can find me on Twitter and Instagram at June Angelides. Feel free to follow me. Feel free to do a link tree where female founders can book a mentoring session with me. So since the beginning of lockdown, I now have 2 days a week where I dedicate 60 minutes Actually, it's more. No, I give 120 minutes because I've got, yes, 2 days. I get an hour slot where people can book 20-minute sessions with me. And we can talk about anything from, wanting to start your business, funding options, and, if you just want to have a chat about what you're building and get some insights from me, I am more than happy to help. So feel free to use that. And, people can, there's a lot of information about me online. Feel free to read. And if you have any questions, just reach out.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I feel like I'm going to go and ask my dad and see if he's got a spare 100 grand.
Yeah.
Because June said, ask your friends and family.
You never know.
And they'll be like, oh my goodness, what are you going to do? What's happening? Yes, that's amazing. I've loved chatting. Thank you so much for being such a brilliant guest. And it's so useful. And, you're such an inspiration to me as well. I just love seeing what you're doing and following your adventures, and keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you so much, Nikki. Great talking to you.
And you too. Bye. Thanks so much for listening to today's episode. If you haven't already, feel free to rate, review, and subscribe for all the brand new episodes. If you want to go deeper with my support, check out my freebies house and unlock the rooms you choose. NickyRaby.com/freebies house. I also have workshops, programs, and one-on-one bespoke offerings. For prices, availability, or just to have a chat with me, go to NickyRaby.com. Thank you, as always, for spending some time with me and my guests, and I'll see you next time.